Hello, and thank you for accessing Positive Impact's webinar to celebrate International Women's Day. In this webinar, we'll be exploring ISO 20121, the event sustainability standard, and gender equality. You'll learn about gender responsive approach, which is happening within the standard world, and the importance of gender equality to business, and what this could mean for the future of events. We're very pleased to be able to welcome Noelia Garcia Nebra, Head of Sustainability from ISO, and Bee Delgado, UK Head of Social Sustainability Programme at the UN Global Compact Network UK.
Hi, Fiona Pelham. Please could you tell us a little bit more about Positive Impact and your role as the chair of the project committee for ISO?
Yeah, Positive Impact is a not-for-profit which since 2005 has existed to create a sustainable event sector through engagement, education and collaboration. So we have a community of over 1,700 ambassadors around the world. The global event sector is a majority female business SME supply chain. So we're very happy to have a strong number of women as our Positive Impact ambassadors. And Positive Impact also has connections and memorandums of understanding with different United Nations bodies. So for example, we're a Race to Zero accelerator and a UN SDG action mobilizer. So that's Positive Impact, and my day role is as CEO of Positive Impact, but my voluntary role is of chair of the ISO 20121. And the revision for ISO 20121 is starting in March 2023. And my role with that is really making sure that as many people as possible know that this is happening, have contacted their national standards bodies to ask to be involved, reaching out to liaison bodies and making sure that they're involved, and then chairing the process for the project committee. And I think the first thing I would say about chairing is that there are the importance of the feminine traits that we have in a position of chairing. So men and women have masculine and feminine traits. A typical masculine trait could be competition. A typical feminine trait is listening. And in the chair role, it's very important to listen to what is being said because you're facilitating everyone else's conversation.
Perfect, thank you. So my first question for you is, what is the role of standards in advancing gender equality?
Yes, well, standards, first of all, are everywhere. Traditionally, standards have been created by a group that might not reflect all of us. So back in 2012, when ISO 2012 launched, at the time, I was the youngest female ever to chair an ISO standard. And I felt very capable of doing that at the time, and I felt like I represented the sector of the standard. So I think the first thing that's important for standards is to make sure that everybody's voice is around the table. In the revision of ISO 20121, we've actually had guidelines on gender equality within standards, and myself and the chair of the working group have read the guidelines. And one of the things that we've put into practice is at the start of the meeting to look at the data and just do a report around how many women are involved, how many men are involved, how many non-binary people are involved, and report on that. So I'm looking forward to putting that into action.
That's great, thank you. Secondly, how could ISO 20121 impact the future of events and gender equality?
Well, ISO 20121 can definitely impact the future of events because it is a management system standard. So it's a way of planning an event. And in the future, it's going to be vital that we start off from the perspective of what are our issues and then addressing those issues in the planning of our event. Something that absolutely fascinates me is the fact that we have so many panels that still exist, and these are all male panels. Now, if you have a panel of all men, you're only giving space to one type of voice. The women's voice will not be heard on that panel. And that's the first place that the event industry should really start looking at itself. So by implementing ISO 2012-1, it's going to be looking at all aspects of sustainability. One of the SDGs is on gender equality. So as event professionals look through the SDGs, looking at what they can do, it should become a real no-brainer that there's never a manel around. And secondly, that there's never a picture of a manel posted on LinkedIn that represents the event. That I set myself a little challenge a few years ago that whether I knew the people or not, if I saw a manel while scrolling through LinkedIn, I would just leave a little comment questioning whether everyone's voice was being heard. And it fascinates me how many still exist.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Lastly, if people want to find out more about getting involved, what actions could they take?
To get involved with the revision of ISO 2012-1, the first piece of advice I would give is to join the Positive Impact Ambassador community, because then Positive Impact will be contacting you directly with calls to action. The second piece of advice I would say is go to the Positive Impact website and you can find materials on how to contact your national standards body or contact your association about becoming a liaison. ISO has a very clear structure in terms of how it engages with everybody. The revision of a standard is done by consensus. It's a very rigorous and recognized and credible international approach. So I would encourage you to get involved, but there are set ways to do so, and being part of the Positive Impact community will help you find the best way.
Thanks, Fiona. And here's a short animation to explain more about the Sustainable Development Goal SDG 5, what we mean about gender equality.
The Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are a collection of 17 global goals designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The SDGs, set in 2015 by the United Nations General Assembly, are intended to be achieved by the year 2030. The goal of SDG 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. For the event industry, this could mean creating an anti-discrimination policy for your event, or ensuring at least 50% of content for your event is provided by women. In 2019, Positive Impact Events and UN SDG Action Campaign launched a survey for event professionals to commit to action to further the Sustainable Development Goals. Over 7,000 commitments to action were gathered from event professionals in 58 countries. If every event professional added their voice to these commitments, we would be able to show the impact of our industry in the language of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. For example, 60 million female speakers.
Today we're joined by Noelia Garcia Nebra from ISO. Noelia, thank you for joining us today on International Women's Day. Please, could you tell us a little bit more about your role and about ISO?
Thank you, and thank you to Positive Impact for having me here today. My name is Noelia Garcia, and I'm the head of sustainability at ISO. As such, I'm responsible of advancing ISO's agenda on sustainability, including diversity and inclusion and gender in particular.
Great. And so my first question for you today is, why is it important to consider gender in standards development?
Gender equality and women empowerment is a key element of achieving sustainable development for all. But gender equality is not only the right thing to do, is a human right, it also makes actually business sense. Gender equality increases the performance of organizations, it increases staff motivation and productivity. We have actually studies that have shown that addressing gender equality could boost global economic growth by at least 4%. Standards play an important role in our daily lives. They are a force for good in societies. They ensure that products, services, and processes work as intended. They impact almost all the aspects of our daily life, even if we don't see them. They protect health of the planet and of people. They facilitate trade and boost innovation and work for all businesses, big and small. And that's why diversity and inclusion should be a key element for the development of standards, so that they help create a world where everyone is considered and represented. That's also the case for standards in the events industry. The events industry has a direct impact on people. It plays an important role on community building, on cultural development, among other aspects. Hence, developing gender responsive standards in that area will help ensuring that, on one hand, both men and women are equally treated in that sector, in the workplace. And unfortunately, we have seen some reports showing that women in that sector are more vulnerable to be harassed on the workplace. And then on the other hand, we have seen an increase of the demand by women for attending events, being audience of events. Hence, bringing a gender lens to our standards will ensure that we are developing events that also respond to the needs of this audience, of women in the audience. Having more women represented in development is very important. Like this, we can ensure that their contributions, their presence and perspective are taken into consideration. However, it is important to note that gender equality cannot be achieved by women alone. It requires the contribution of men and women alike.
Thanks, Noelia. I think that's really important to remember when we speak about gender equality. It doesn't just mean women, it's men and non-binary as well. So thank you very much for that. And last year, ISO published its gender plan for 22 to 25. What can we expect from the action plan when it comes to gender responsive standards?
As I mentioned before, standards play a critical role in our lives, and at ISO we recognize that our organization and our members can really support advancing the gender equality agenda. In 2019, ISO signed the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe initiative, or gender responsive standards declaration. As a logic follow-up to that, we developed our very first gender action plan, which covered the period 2019-2021. During that time, we have learned more about how gender equality is considered in our organization in the development of our standards. We have learned that men's participation in standardization is twice as high as women's participation. We also ran a survey among our technical community, and according to the results, only 25% of the respondents indicated that gender had been considered in the work they are carrying out developing standards. And of those, the most common cited reason for considering gender was its relevance to the sector. So we know a bit more about gender in standardization, and based on those learnings, we developed the ISO Gender Action Plan 2022-2025 with a very, very strong and serious objective to ensure that ISO processes and products are gender responsive. So what are we planning to do? On one hand, we are working together with IEC, the Inter-Electrotechnical Commission, and we have developed with them guidelines to the technical community on how to take gender into consideration in standards development work. And as a next step, we will develop specific guidelines for product standards, service standards, or processes standards. We are going to also develop case studies and survey the committees to assess their engagement in developing gender responsive standards. Furthermore, we will soon launch some research to understand better what are the existing challenges and barriers to women participation in standardization, and understand what are the opportunities for improving their participation in standards. And finally, we are going to be looking and working with our members and stakeholders such as the consumer representatives to identify new areas of standardization that support gender equality and women empowerment, and develop capacity building support to our members so that they can develop their own gender action plans as well. I think that bringing a gender lens to ISO 20121 on sustainable events will be a very important contribution to ISO's gender action. We count on our experts and on the events community to champion diversity and inclusion and ensure that all future events will be accessible and relevant to all.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, Noelia. That was really interesting. Thank you, and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you very much. Happy International Women's Day to all.
Welcome to Bee Delgado, Head of Social Sustainability Programme at the UN Global Compact Network UK. Bee, could you tell us a little bit more about the UN Global Compact Network UK and why gender equality is a priority for your members?
The UN Global Compact is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, with over 16,000 member companies across the world who have made commitment to sustainability through our 10 principles. These universal principles are derived from UN treaties in the areas of human rights, labour, environment and anti-corruption. We mostly engage with member companies through our in-country local networks, of which we have over 70 across the world. Here at the UK network, our mission is to turn this global momentum on sustainability into practical action. We have 3 main work streams: environment, social and governance, as well as dedicated programming on Sustainable Development Goals. We deliver around 100 events a year to support our members and the wider business community in the UK. The Sustainable Development Goals are at the heart of responsible business. All 17 goals need solutions that the private sector can deliver, representing a large and growing market for business innovation. Gender equality is a matter of fundamental human rights, and we won't achieve any of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals if women and girls are left behind. Goal 5 in particular calls on us to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, and target 5.5 calls for women's full and effective participation in equal opportunities in leadership, including in economic life. Businesses which prioritise diversity and inclusion, including gender equality, see benefits such as increased financial performance, better employee productivity, stronger team performance and innovation, and increased market reputation. Commitments to gender equality are now an essential part of doing business in 2023. It's not something that is simply nice to have, but rather a priority. We can see this in the Hampton-Alexander Review, which met its targets, and then the success of initiatives such as the Women's Empowerment Principles and Target Gender Equality. UK companies are also going to give preference to suppliers which are taking actions that reflect their own gender equality commitments, especially as more due diligence legislation comes in. Suppliers which can demonstrate action towards gender equality will therefore be at a competitive advantage.
Thank you for that. It just goes to show how important that the SDG goals are for business to include. And thank you for explaining that. It was really clear. Could you tell us how you support your members on their gender equality journey?
We have many different initiatives and resources, but there are 2 which I'd like to talk about today: the Women's Empowerment Principles and our Target Gender Equality Programme. Developing Goal 5 strategies, which are tailored to your organisation, requires a strong understanding of your current position. The WEP's Gender Gap Analysis tool is a free and open resource which allows you to do just that. For those of you that may not be familiar, the Women's Empowerment Principles, or WEPs, are a joint initiative of the UN Global Compact and UN Women. Through 7 principles, they promote a holistic approach to gender equality, helping companies understand their impacts in the workplace, marketplace, and community. Since their launch in 2010, more than 5,000 global business leaders have signed a CEO statement of support for the principles. The WEP's Gender Gap Analysis tool was launched in 2017 to help companies assess current policies and programs, highlight areas for improvement, and identify opportunities to set future corporate goals and targets. The tool is free, anonymous, and open to companies of any size in any sector or geography. The results will never be linked back to an individual company or divulged to the public, and anonymized data will solely be used in its aggregate form to better understand gender equality trends. The WEPS tool is comprised of 18 multiple choice questions that draw from good practices from around the world, covering gender equality in leadership, workplace, marketplace, and community. Topics covered by the assessment include commitment to a gender equality strategy, equal pay, recruitment, supporting parents and caregivers, women's health, inclusive sourcing and supply chains, and advocacy for gender equality in communities of operation. Once you've completed the questions, a personalised results report will allow you to see your score and corresponding category: beginner, improver, achiever, or leader. It's important to recognise that the tool is aligned with the ambition of the global goals rather than current practice, and thus scores tend to be on the lower side. In fact, no company has ever received a perfect score. Most companies score in the beginner or improver category, but by taking the tool and measuring their progress, these companies are taking their first steps towards Goal 5. Another way that we at the UN Global Compact support our member companies in pursuit of Goal 5 is through the Target Gender Equality Accelerator Programme. While the overarching aim of this programme is to achieve gender balance in business, including at the highest levels such as board and executive management, the programme takes a holistic approach, recognising that many barriers need to be addressed to level the playing field for women. Target Gender Equality features 4 sets of activities. First is performance analysis, in which we run a tailored facilitation of the WEPS gender gap analysis tool I just mentioned. Capacity building through 3 interactive workshops that collectively support companies in developing tailored action plans with company-specific recommendations for impact. Third, action dialogues in the form of executive roundtables with government, civil society, and other actors aimed at generating concrete commitments and action. Finally, advocacy through a global campaign and a range of high-profile global events which promote corporate targets and action, emphasise the business case for gender equality, and showcase women's business leadership. Target Gender Equality provides companies with the ability to assess and communicate their own performance on Goal 5 by undertaking the WEPS gap analysis tool. We then conduct a tailored review of their results, which ensures companies can set specific targets and personalised action plans, which are ambitious yet achievable for their organisations. The programme also provides case studies and peer learning to build a roadmap for companies navigating challenges around recruitment, retention, and culture change. In short, companies graduate from the programme with the understanding to set or amend their own targets for Goal 5, as well as the tools to build a strategy and analyse and communicate their performance over time.
Great, thank you so much for that. There seems to be an amazing amount of support and materials there that the UN Global Compact Network UK can offer. At the end of this webinar, there will be details of how people can contact you to become members as well. I'd like to thank you for your time today and for that great response to the questions, and just to say happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
There are a number of ways of being able to get involved with the discussions today, and by accessing the different QR codes, you will be able to find out more information. Thank you and happy International Women's Day.